Okay, now how does SAP architecture works and how does it look like? The application server, of course, it sits comfortably between the databases and the presentation layer, which is the GUI. Okay. The users basically interact with the presentation layer. Now, what is presentation layer? Presentation layer is this layer. Okay, the ones that we see, the screens, the transaction codes. Okay, like purchasing, master data, info record, ME11, create. Now, this is our presentation layer. Now, this presentation layer actually communicates, sends requests like if we want to extract vendor from here, material from here, we are sending a request. We are searching for material vendor through dispatcher. Now, through the requests which are sent to dispatcher, and dispatcher is directly controlled and executed by ABAP layers, ABAP code, which assigns requests to work processes that we cannot notice because these are very fast processes. So the work processes that we have are dialog, background jobs, pull requests, funnel messages, third-party integration, route messages. Okay. So these are some of the various work processes that we have. Now, the dispatcher basically is the ABAP code, which actually works with background processes, the work processes, which are of various types like dialog, updating the database, or creating print requests with spools, background jobs, and of course, user authorizations. And above that, where there is presentation layer, it has other protocols to take care, like messaging server, gateways, internet communication managers. Okay. Now, the gateway basically is third integration between SAP and third parties. Internet communication is the cloud that we access to run SAP systems on the HTTP protocol. User context. Now, what is user context? User context is nothing but SU01. SU0 display. Over here, we have defaults. Now, these are user parameters that will be stored whenever I log into the system. And this is the date format I would like to see. And the time format will be 24 hours. Okay. And time zone is India. Okay. The parameters that I will be following or I will have defaulted with my user ID authorizations will be the parameters. The roles again will be of various modules that are assigned. SU01 parameters. And these are the parameters that I will be using for various modules. Okay. And the roles that I will have will be of cash manager, Fury Foundation, and other roles that I can supervise and I'm authorized to use. Okay. So this is what current settings and authorizations are about. And this is the user context. Now, speaking of the architecture, again, we have the work processes that handle various other inside jobs like screen processing, ABAP interpretation, database interfacing, and communication with the database. Okay. And these ABAP dispatcher has multiple tasking roles. Okay. Now, this is the shared memory where the user context is also shared and other defaults are also loaded like calendar of the factory, tables, dictionary object. Okay. The queues are coming in from the presentation layer, which are then handled by dispatcher. Database layer where, of course, all the records, tables, logical tables, their setup is basically stored. Okay. It has the ABAP source code, customizations of all the modules. So everything is basically housed in this repository in the database. Now, these are the work processes of various types that we have already discussed. There is a buffer which loads the user context and whatever the request is being worked on. Okay, like for example, if you are running MD02, I hope this runs. Okay, like MD02 is MRP run for production planning. It will load the materials to run material requirements planning MRP on those materials, and that will be buffered, and ABAP dispatcher will be responsible for executing it. And this is the presentation. Okay, so at the application level where the dispatcher is at work, it is handling that those different types of processes. The buffers actually load the programs to be executed. Okay. Uh, Buffers help in speeding up the processing. Okay. Data that is often read but never changed or seldom changed, that is customizing data, currencies, company code, are held at buffer level. Okay. If you talk about a little bit more deeply, the relationship between database layers and application is that the ABAP dispatcher and the interpreter, because part of dispatcher has interpreter as well, which is a type of work process, which communicates with the database using either the database interface, or it can directly exchange commands through native SQL and database data, which can use SQL to control and access the database. The programs in client server architecture basically are held at the client level, which can be passed on to another client. By client means it's not the client that we meet and talk and close deals with. The client in SAP language is the server that we are working on. Is one instance is called the client. Okay, let me show you what that is. This is the client. This can be various because right now we're in the development server or the practice server or golden server. And the golden server is that which has only configuration, no data has been input or fetched from the outside. It's pure configuration, that's why it's golden server. But this is development of practice server. QA server is the quality for testing purposes or for training purposes. The server instance will be some other number that is assigned by the architecture guys. So this is the client. Enter. Okay. Now, these receive their inputs from the presentation layer and work with data in the database. So ABAP programs actually sit in the middle, okay, to work with the database layer. Right now, we'll just write a simple program before we wrap it up. SE38, SE38 ZT7503 data layers. Executable. Now, as I said last time that we will be discussing what are the types of programs that we can use, include module function subroutine. We'll be discussing subroutine by the 14th and 15th lecture. Okay, classes we'll discuss after that. Include programs, basically they run a program within a program. Okay, and this will basically reduce your code and introduce reusability in your program that you can use. So these are universal, like functions, subroutines include. These are some uh, global, global packages of code that you can produce so that you can reuse it later on. Authorization group is again for users, as I showed you earlier with SU01. Application, for what program or module am I making this application or program for hospital human resources or HRM or for MM, It can be anything. So we'll keep that empty. LDB name is local database. Now, local database basically is referring to your HR systems where legacy systems of HR can be pulled in. And since because SAP HCM was acquired as a separate technology before it was integrated with SAP, it was basically connected with through LDB because it was a different technology. Okay, selection screen. We've already seen the presentation where every screen has a number, and we'll see that later on through another code called SE90 package. Now, what is this package? This package is actually delivered from client development client to quality client, and from there on to production client. So it is packaged in this package. We have programs, we have code, we have data. Okay, and that is packaged together. Okay. Local object means it will not be packaged to another client. It will just stay here because it is local for a local client. Data. Now, explaining this, understanding this data is in blue, which is a keyword in SAP. WM macked is type macked. Now, what is macked? Let me see 11. MAKT display. Now, this is a table for material descriptions which has these many elements or fields of various data types. So we'll be working with these fields. These fields, some are key fields that make this table recognizable and accessible through these key fields. Through this, you can basically drive this table. Initialize means that these fields cannot be zero. Initial means it should have initial data. It cannot be zero. Force not null means you will have to force it to be not empty. Okay, that is not null. Material description, MAKT X. Process language, this material number, and this is client. Client is again your server instance. Okay. Now let's go back. WA Mac. Now, what does WA mean over here? WA means work area. Since because this is standard SAP table. Okay. Let's see 38. Okay. MAKT, we have seen it's a standard table. So we actually make a clone. You can make a clone of internal table and work area. Now, work area is basically what we'll access directly. To make changes, to exchange data, we need to push data through this, and it will actually act as a representative of table MAKT. Now, select single all records of a line of a row, single record, single row, which has all the details from MAKT, which is main SAP table into work area. Now, load all of the data that is available in a single row of MAKT into work area mapped if that data has material number 100, 100. We don't have such material. So what we'll do, we'll do this 3000, okay, and we'll write MAKT. Check, activate. Direct processing. Now select single. I'll just come back to this. What is the logic between this? We are actually loading. We'll discuss this. Just give me a minute before it actually loads up. Come on, the server is getting slow.